is Waec 2026 chemistry forecasted questions for the qualitative analysis. Last year we did it. It was almost word for word as it came. And this year we have researched, and what we have is between 98 to 99.5 real. Yes, we trust this forecast is going to be almost word for word like this 2026 again. All right, so recall that Waec 2026, they gave lead carbonate, lead 2 triazole carbonate 4, and starch. Yeah, these are the salts given. So we're asked to mix equal ratio 1:1 of the lead carbonate, 1 spatula of this and 1 spatula of this, thoroughly mixed. Now, from research, lead carbonate is insoluble in water. Starch is also insoluble in water. Therefore, exam pattern question, it will be difficult for the examiner to ask you to dissolve this using distilled water since they are insoluble. You may not be able to dissolve using water. So, if for whatever reason you are told to dissolve using water, lead carbonate is sparingly soluble, whereas starch is insoluble. So that means you might be having traces of the filtrate. In the filtrate, when you filter, what you'll be having is the lead carbonate. So it's very sparingly soluble. But that will be difficult anyways. Exam pattern questions does not assure that. And so you'll be requiring to dissolve using triazole nitrate 5 acid. All right, now here are the questions we have forecasted, and believe me, it's going to be like this. So say C is a mixture of organic and inorganic salt. Carry out the following exercise on C. Then A, put all of C in a test tube or boiling tube and add 10 cm cube of dilute HNO3 and filter. Then divide the filtrate into 3 portions. So you divide the filtrate into 3 portions. Then BI says to the first portion, add sodium hydroxide in drops, then in excess. To the second portion, add aqueous ammonia in drops, then in excess. To the third portion, add dilute HCl and then heat, then allow to cool. So let's now, then the final as the C. To the residue, add iodine to it. Believe me, this is how it's going to appear. So let's go to our sample. So our sample will say, here is our result. Here we'll say C plus HNO3. C plus dilute, dilute HNO3. What will you see? Part of C dissolved with effervescence, giving a colorless, odorless gas, which turned lime water milky. Okay, part of C will dissolve with effervescence, giving a colorless, odorless gas, which turned lime water milky. And so what is the inference? Gas is CO2. From where? CO3 to minus. Gas is CO2 from CO3 to minus. That's what you have. Now, let's go to the next one. That's BI. We are told to first portion of filtrate, we are adding sodium hydroxide to it. First portion plus sodium hydroxide, and then we'll filter. So when you add sodium hydroxide in drops, it's white precipitate. In excess, precipitate will be insoluble. Make sure the response must be for each other. Like in excess, the response or the observation must be also just for it in excess. Then for drops, observation should be for it as well for drops. Then what is our inference? Our inference here is that you have lead ion, lead 2 ion, okay? You have zinc ion and aluminum ion present, because these 3 ions would dissolve in excess of sodium hydroxide. The next instruction says second portion plus aqueous ammonia in drops and then in excess. So with aqueous ammonia, you also have white precipitates. In excess, the precipitate will now be insoluble. And that's how we have differentiated the ions. So you have see zinc is now absent from the inference. What we have now is lead and aluminum ion. So we are narrowing it down. It's being narrowed down so as to identify the actual cation that is present. All right. So next, in this, remember that what we are having as the filtrate is lead carbonate. And we have identified the carbonate present there, as well as the gas that evolved through the carbonate. And so what we have now is the lead ion, which we have narrowed with aluminum ion. Then to identify lead ion, we are supposed to be given potassium dichromate. We are supposed to be given potassium dichromate, but this was not given. So since it was not given, another way to identify is by asking you to heat and then allow to cool. Because when you heat a salt containing lead, it's going to dissolve when it becomes hot. And then on cooling, the precipitate will reappear. And so let's go to that now. That's third sample plus heat. As you can see, third sample plus heat. Sorry, first plus HCl and then heat. So when you add HCl to it, you have white precipitate. When you heat, precipitate will dissolve. When you allow to cool, precipitate will reappear. It's important you make these observations, remarks for each one. Very, very important. And so let's go to our inference. Inference will be that the lead 2 ion has been confirmed. The lead 2 ion confirmed, because lead is the ion that on cooling it will dissolve, on heating it will dissolve, on cooling precipitate will reappear. So that's why we're confirming lead. Now the residue, which is, recall, the residue is starch. Residue is starch. So if we add iodine to starch, it's going to turn blue black, and that will confirm the presence of the starch. So residue plus iodine solution, say blue black color formed, or you can also say dark blue. If you don't know blue black, you can say dark blue formed, dark blue color formed. And then the inference will be that starch is present. Starch is present. And so this is the forecast for this 2026. Like I said, it is between 98 to 99.5% real. So like this video and share it. You can also subscribe to our channel. This is your result for this exam. Thank you.